Since changing the name of the Eclectic Americana Friday morning drive-time radio show on January 20th, 1989 to the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club, the DJs in the collective have strived to entertain and inform our listeners. Airing from 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific at KCSE 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California, the Bushwhackers usually have 2 interviews a week, each airing for about half an hour. We're not afraid to ask questions or admit that we don't know something, and we don't mind taking deep dives or following a tangent as we get into how sausage is made in local, county, or state politics. Our interviews are not scripted and are co-produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange, and Sleepy John Sandage.
On this podcast, the Bushwhackers are interviewing Ryan Coonerty, who's been the Santa Cruz County Supervisor since 2015. This interview aired on October 18th, 2019. Thanks for listening and enjoy the podcast.
You're listening to the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club, KZSC Santa Cruz. I'm Dangerous Dan.
And I am Myro.
And joining us in the studio, Santa Cruz County Supervisor Ryan Coonerty.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I am doing just great.
Great.
Nice to have you here in person.
Thanks. It's it worked out well, and it's nice. It is much better to talk in person.
And it's because you're up here to record, pre-record, produce, what?
So I have a podcast called An Honorable Profession, and what we do is interview the future and emerging stars from the Democratic Party. We're trying to save politics in this age of hopelessness. And
today you're interviewing a third grader.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be a great president in 2050. Actually today I'm interviewing Kate Bowles. She's a senator in the state of Nebraska who's just declared that she's running against an 8-term incumbent Republican congressman, and she is going to try to flip the seat, and I want to talk to her about what's going on in Nebraska and how she decided to make this run.
So when you record a podcast, do you talk for an hour and then edit it down to 20 minutes, or you try and just do a stream of consciousness live, just hit go and then end? And because it's a podcast, you don't have to fill a fixed volume of time. So
yeah.
When it ends, it ends.
When it ends, it ends. We try to keep between 30 and 45 minutes, and then hit the big topics. Sort of what's the path into public service? Because I have an image that there's a bunch of people out there who are angry about what's going on. They want to get involved. They want to serve their community, and running for office seems like this crazy thing. But I try to have people tell their stories, and you realize it's a very human experience. It's very doable. Hopefully people run, and then we talk about what they're doing, what they're getting done once they're elected, and then what they want to do, and then people talk about their lives as well.
When did you start doing the podcast, and what kind of inspired you to do it?
Sure, about a year ago, and what inspired me really was that our democracy is on fire right now, and a lot of people are losing hope and faith. But when I was out traveling the country as an elected official, meeting my counterparts, you can see that we're really in this amazing time where you have really smart, talented people running for state and local office, but their stories aren't told, right? Because we're looking at the latest crisis in Washington and what's going on. And so I thought, let's have that conversation. Let's highlight some of these people. Some of the people on the podcast have become major people. I interviewed Pete Buttigieg, who was just the mayor of South Bend when we talked, and now he's in the top 5 presidential candidates. So we're watching these folks emerge, and now some are running for Congress, and some are just continuing to do good work at the local level. So it's been a fun conversation.
And do you get kind of metrics on how many people listen, download? Do you know whether they just started and turned off after a minute and a half, or whether they actually tracked it all the way through?
Yeah, that's one of the fun parts about podcasts, and so people can go on An Honorable Profession and subscribe to hear more, and then let me know what you think. I mean, I'm always looking for people to say, "Wow, that was a great interview, but why didn't you ask this question or that question?" And so we got about 6,000 listeners, 7,000 listeners. And what my real hope is that it's going to inspire someone who, wanted to get involved but saw running for office as too overwhelming. It's going to inspire them to run for office, or somebody who's in office inspire them to run for the next office. We need literally thousands of good people to step up if we're going to save our democracy.
What kind of questions do you usually ask for them to sort of like prompt them to sort of seek out kind of these venues?
Yeah, so the first is like their path into public office.
Sure.
Like were you the kid that wanted to be president in second grade, or were you the person who's never thought they'd run for office, and what does that look like? And then we talk about what was it like that first campaign, the first door you knocked on, the first fundraising call you made. And then it's easy because you start talking about what they're doing in the community, and these people are passionate about, helping improving education systems or their cities, or trying to fix more investment in infrastructure in their state. And then we talk about what they're doing and why. And my last conversation, the most recent one that's up, is I talked to essentially the registrar of voters for Maricopa County in Arizona, which is so he's at ground zero of voting in a purple state, in a swing state.
What's his name, that sheriff was from.
Yes, exactly. And he took out a long-time incumbent. He's the first time he's held office, and he's trying to expand opportunities for people to vote, but he's got to work with all Republican county executives, and really his success in whether people can vote in Maricopa County, which is where Phoenix is, will determine probably the future of the nation, right? So this guy is a local office holder. You've never heard of him, but if he doesn't run a good election, one, we start to lose our democracy and people have lost their right to vote. Two, that Arizona could be the deciding state in this election, and he's got that job. And so talking to him about his path in and why he does what he does, he was a really interesting guy.
And with thousands of listeners, I assume this is not a major source of revenue for Ryan Coonerty.
So I make no money from this, and also people should know I'm up here before work or after work, so I'm not doing it on county time. No, I partnered with this group called New Deal Democrats, it's an organization that supports emerging leaders, and it helps them highlight some of their leaders. And so, there's no money being made. We're just trying to get the word out and raise the profile of these really remarkable people.
Do you ever try to reach across the aisle and talk to other people who have maybe opposing views, or is that something that maybe it's being reconsidered?
So we haven't, because New Deal wants to just focus on their leaders. I think there's an interesting conversation there. I worry, sort of like everything in our country right now. People tend to tailor their media to the people they like, and I don't know if people want a bipartisan conversation right now, or if they just want to focus on their team. And so this
is the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club. We are bipartisan. We play both types of music, country and Western.
Yes, exactly.
Is it always like a worry that it might kind of devolve into something that isn't as like efficient, like an inefficient conversation, maybe, if you speak to someone who maybe not share the same views as yours?
No, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity to have conversations, and I'm part of other groups that are bipartisan where we do have those conversations, and it's remarkable how much when the party isn't in the room and when the press isn't in the room, how much we can all agree on things. But I think right now, given the state of our democracy and given the state of the need for the Democratic Party candidates to win across the country, I'm just focusing on that one audience. Yeah.
If you're just joining us, folks, we're chatting with Santa Cruz County Supervisor and podcast star of an honorable profession, Ryan Coonerty. Ryan is one of 5 county supervisors. Let's see, the other 4, Zach Friend, we see him on Fox News every now and then, Bruce McPherson, who was so polite that when I mispronounced his name continuously during our interview, he did not correct me. But now I know it's Bruce McPherson. John Leopold. Who am I forgetting?
Greg Caput out in Watsonville.
There we go. Now, okay, so there are 5 county supervisors that govern all of Santa Cruz County other than the cities of Capitola, Santa Cruz, Scotts Valley, and Watsonville.
Correct. So, yeah, supervisors, essentially two jobs, right? One job is we are the first line of government. We're like the city council for everyone who lives in an unincorporated area outside those cities, which in Santa Cruz County, and this is pretty unique in California, is half the population lives outside. So everywhere from Bonnie Doon and Davenport to Live Oak, Aptos, San Lorenzo Valley, Corralitos, all those areas don't have a city council, so we're their city council, so we're responsible for everything that goes on in those places. And then the second part is we run all the countywide services, so the jail, juvenile hall, public health, substance abuse, mental health, mosquito vector control, agricultural commissioner.
Public health.
Because
the cities don't have a public health budget, right?
Correct.
So that even in the city area, the county is running public health.
Correct. Yeah, all those services that span across the county, we're responsible for as well.
And 5 county supervisors, and each of you have an area of the county.
Correct. Yeah, we're all...
Which is yours?
We're all districts. So my... that's funny you ask, because I happen to have the best district.
Of course.
Yeah, so my district runs essentially from the yacht harbor through Santa Cruz and up the north coast all the way to the San Mateo County line.
Okay, so I think we talked with you last time we called. We talked on the phone the fact that Santa Cruz essentially gave away Año Nuevo to San Mateo County about 100 and some odd years ago, and we asked you if you were going to put together a task force to see about clawing Año Nuevo back from San Mateo County.
Yeah, I decided to put together an army. We're just gonna invade.
3 twos and surfboards. Here we go.
The elephant seals will be ours. Yeah. So this is Santa Cruz County used to be part of a larger county, and they split it up. But we go right up to Waddell Creek.
Gotcha. Okay, so you've got Yacht Harbor North. There's 5 of you. Is a county supervisor a full-time paid job?
It is a full-time paid job,
wow.
And so it's unique in local government to have a full-time paid job, and yes, I feel very fortunate to have it.
Kind of switching a little bit, considering like there was the rent control and the affordable housing propositions that came up within the last year. Should we expect something like that? Some other propositions that may pop up within the next year or so? Or is that something that is not really well known yet?
Oh, no, it's everyone's thinking about it right now. So that the rent control was a city proposition. The housing bond was a countywide proposition. I think going forward, I think we are going to have... I think Cabrillo College is going to be coming out for a bond in March. I think we're looking at potentially a TOT, which is the tax on people who stay in hotel rooms. We're looking at maybe increasing that slightly to fund some services in the county. So right now, people are all trying to figure out what they're going to bring up and put to the voters.
When people stay in a gig economy room, Airbnb or something like that, do they pay the TOT, the tax on hotel rooms?
Yes, they do now. So we
I see you smiling.
Yes. So this was been one of the interesting things about serving in public life these days is you have these disruptive technologies that sort of show up and you have to figure out how to deal with them. And the Airbnb or vacation rentals have a huge impact on neighborhoods. They have a potential impact on losing our housing stock as people rent out their houses to visitors instead of to locals, or sell their houses and have them become second or third homes. And so we've worked really hard to try to regulate that market in both the cities and the county. And we got some pretty good regulations right now, but yeah, they collect the tax and remit it to us.
Speaking of gig economies, I know that Uber and Lyft aren't as big around here as they are in some of the more inner city areas, but has that impacted the way you guys govern? Because I know that Uber is sort of a thing over here.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. We're really going through a transformation in our transportation systems as first with these sorts of on-demand, whether it's bikes or scooters or cars.
Jump bikes especially.
Jump bikes, here. Right. And jump bikes are, they're an Uber company, and then eventually moving to self-driving cars will be a major change. And so yes, the cities those come in. The city hasn't had the same sort of pitched battles that some of the bigger cities have had because it's not quite as big an impact. The one thing we're trying to figure out is whether these Ubers are actually increasing traffic around town when we're trying, especially like for instance UCSC, we're making great strides at lowering traffic, but it may they may be having an impact on increased traffic, and then we got to figure out what to do about that.
I'm curious, what kind of relationship does Santa Cruz have with like jump bikes? Because I know that jump is not prevalent in a lot of cities, but Santa Cruz appears to be like one of like the cities that it has like a relationship with. How did that come about?
So the city has a contract with Jump Bike to provide service in the city, and the city has provided places where they can park their racks and that sort of thing, and then we're trying to expand it all the way out into the unincorporated areas, into Live Oak and all the way to Soquel and Capitola. We're having a little bit of a challenge because we want a slightly different contract than what the city has with jump bikes, and so but doesn't make sense to have two different bike companies.
Right.
So we're trying to negotiate that actually as we speak.
But okay, jump bikes are great. Our kids use them, and our kids, since if we saw them on a jump bike without a helmet, we'd dock their pay about 2 months allowance. So many people go around town on jump bikes, on gig economy bikes without helmets. It just scares the bejesus out of me. And I'm saying this as a guy who had an accident on an e-scooter 3.5 weeks ago in San Antonio. Ended up in the hospital. Thank God I was wearing a helmet. Okay, so I'm not totally messed up. But I just worry that if you take jump bikes or gig economy bikes or e-scooters out into the unincorporated county, that too many people are going to be going too far too fast, and they're tough to see. So how do you tie it in with somehow having a helmet materialize out of thin air that just happens to fit?
Yeah, so this is a major issue, and it's happening, and I see it all the time where you see 2 or 3 kids on a jump bike, and none of them have helmets, and they're hanging off in the bucket there. It's crazy. So one is, the first thing we have to figure out is, and this is something that other cities have dealt with, is so when that accident happens, you hit a pothole and go tumbling over. Is jump bike responsible, or is the city responsible, or the county responsible for that, for potential damages? And that's why we're looking to make contracts that say obviously the jump bike's responsible, and
they're going to put it in the fine print that nobody's ever going to read. That the user is responsible.
Correct. And then we have to figure out how to make it safer. What we're trying to do is increase the number of bike lanes and the rail trail, so that we can move people across where they're not navigating through traffic, and having a much more pleasant and safe experience. And that's really essential. But it's a tricky issue because we need people to bring their own helmets and to be responsible about how they ride them.
Can you enforce that kind of like health policy, like public health policy, by like wearing a helmet? Or is that kind of difficult?
So, I think in theory we could. It's the police officers and the sheriffs are so busy on so many calls that I don't think they're going to be.
It's not a priority.
It's not a priority.
Looking for kids without helmets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Other than getting on the PA as they drive past them. Hey, kid, put on a helmet. If I see you again, I'm going to give you a ticket.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Okay. So let's turn our attention toward the number one thing that people. Well, there are 2 or 3, 4 things people talk about: water, fire. Yesterday was the anniversary of the earthquake, but let's talk about, and people talk about homelessness, housing.
Yes.
Housing. Okay. I think we've talked about ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, where somebody turns a garage into a place to live. We've talked about relaxing septic rules so people can increase the number of people on their property. I've read something about, and maybe this is city and not county, about an amnesty for people who rent out something, but maybe it's not totally official and whatnot. But, the number one thing my wife would tell you if she were in here right now, she would say, we have to increase is the housing stock. It is a supply and demand problem. We need more supply. So, wearing your county supervisor hat,
Sure.
Ryan Coonerty, not necessarily representing the Art Harbor and North, but just your county soup hat. Talk to us about housing.
Sure. So I think you're right. It's a multi-pronged approach where we need more ADUs. The state has just made it much easier and less expensive for people to put in ADUs. So that's
auxiliary dwelling units.
Auxiliary dwelling units or granny units. That was already relatively easy compared to other things, and now it's even easier. And now we're looking at a number of housing projects in the unincorporated. The city's obviously looking at a number of housing units, big buildings downtown. Watsonville, the same thing. The county is looking at it in the unincorporated areas in Live Oak and Soquel areas, and we have a big project coming forward. It's total 100% affordable on 17th Capitola Road. I think it'll be coming to us in the next meeting or two. That'll generate, I think, maybe 150 units of affordable housing. We have a couple other smaller projects that are coming forward in the 12 to 20 units. And so, yeah, we are trying to generate it. One of the big challenges we have several big challenges, right? One is not only do we have not enough housing, but we have the wrong kind of housing. We are a graying community where we have a lot more folks over 65. It's growing at like 15% a year. And we also have younger people who are either UCSC or they're coming out of UCSC and they're staying here for a job. And we have a lot of single-family homes, and that doesn't work well for either one of those populations. So we need to look at more co-housing and smaller units in our downtowns and commercial corridors so that people can live and walk to where they shop. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that. I mean, the one thing is we can't build our way out of it. We could build 5,000 units, and I'm not sure the housing prices would go down in any significant way because the demand is so great. But if we can get the right kind of units for the right folks, I think we can free up some housing, and then we really need to focus on affordable housing for the workforce.
So you just mentioned that 17th Capitola is coming forward soon, and it's all going to be affordable.
Correct.
Last week when Santa Cruz City Council member Chris Crone called in, he was lamenting the fact that the city has difficulty getting affordable housing into these negotiations with these builders. He said, you got to find somebody who's going to pay for it. You got to find a group that's going to sponsor it. So how did 17th and Capitola come together? What's the secret sauce?
So it's a partnership between Santa Cruz Community Health Centers, Dientes, and MedPin Housing. And the short answer is, yeah, these are great projects. They take a ton of subsidies, so they applied for a lot of federal and state money, and they buy in the affordability into the property, which you can do, but there's not a ton of that money out there right now. So this project's taken 10 years to piece together and make it happen. But yeah, it's a nonprofit developer who wants to do it and has found funding sources. But it costs about $400,000 per unit of subsidy in order to make it affordable.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's going to be 150 units. Is it already booked up? How do people find out about it? When are these going to be available?
Sure. So, first we have to approve it. Then
I can see one vote out of 5.
Yes,
right
exactly.
There. I can see the thumbs up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting there. Then it'll take a couple years to build it. Then it'll be for people who have Section 8 vouchers. So you get on the Section 8 list, and then you apply.
So Section 8 is HUD, Housing and Urban Development. It's a federal list that you get on? So there's some criteria?
Yeah, it's through, and you can look it up. You can get all the criteria and sign up by going to the Santa Cruz County Housing Authority, and they manage the list locally.
And do they assist people in going through this process? Because sometimes the bureaucracy can be mind-numbing.
They do, and they actually also work with landlords to get them to take Section 8 vouchers, because basically you pay whatever a certain percentage of your income. Once you're below a lower income, you pay a percentage of your income, and the federal government pays the rest. And so one of the important things we've been working on is trying to get more landlords to take Section 8 vouchers. There's a unfortunate and untrue stigma attached to them, and so we're trying to undo that stigma and say, look, these are people who are working in our community and doing the kind of work that we need to get done if we're going to have a vibrant community. And so make sure you support them and their families in getting into this housing.
That was Santa Cruz Housing?
The Santa Cruz Housing Authority.
And where are they?
They are in Mid-County, but they have a website with all this information on it.
Okay. So, that's going to be 150 units, which is great. How did that come together? Did someone, say, "Hey, we own this huge plot of land. Let's do something about it"?
I think the way it came together is you have Santa Cruz Community Health Centers, which has health centers across the county, and they needed a place to build a new clinic. They partner with Dientes, who does community dental care, and then they partner with MidPenn and said, let's put the housing on top.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. Where did this originate? Who?
I think it was Santa Cruz Community Health Center saying, we're going to build a clinic and let's build some housing on top. And then they go out and they fundraise millions of dollars and then go get federal and state grants for the remaining money.
So every county supervisor, you have 2 full-time paid staff that work for you.
Correct.
So that's 10 full-time staff in the county. Does one of them wake up every morning and say, I'm going to work on getting more affordable housing in Santa Cruz County?
Yes. I mean, so everyone's got to work because we have to do that. We have to do mental health, substance abuse, public health, jails. There's 50 issues on any given day, but we have one of my staff is also on the planning commission, and so she works through these projects to get them through the planning commission process so they can get to the board, and that's she's focused on trying to help and make these projects work.
That makes me feel like our tax dollars are going in the right direction.
Yes.
If you're just joining us, folks, it's KZSC Santa Cruz, the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club. We're talking to Santa Cruz County Supervisor Ryan Coonerty. I'm Dangerous Dan.
And I am Myro.
We have the KPFA Morning News coming up in about 2 minutes. So, Ryan, with 2 minutes left, we talked about your podcast, Honorable Profession. Okay, we've talked about how you're not getting paid for that. Full-time job, county soup. Okay, you got about a minute, maybe 2. What do you got coming up in the area, or things that are out there on the horizon that you're thinking about or working on, or maybe just a 1989 earthquake reminiscence? Okay, you got a minute and a half, right?
Sure. So like yesterday was the 30th anniversary of the earthquake. I encourage people to check out the Good Times story about how the community saved Bookshop Santa Cruz, which is my family's bookstore after the earthquake. I was 15 at the time, and when the building was going to be...
Your family's bookstore, but you don't get any revenue from that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's run by my sister. So started by my parents and then run by my sister. And so the building was severely damaged in an earthquake. The city gave us only a couple hours to get all the inventory out. So we put out a call to the community and said, hey, can you come help us? And a line of people, thousands of people showed up, signed waivers.
This is pre kind of widespread internet.
Yeah, it was actually by going on the radio, letting people know. And all those people signed waivers acknowledging that they could die going into this building. And they went in and they literally book by book carried out the bookstore, and the bookshop operated in a tent for...
I remember that.
For a couple years, and then moved across the street. And again, the community moved the books across the street. So it was a good day yesterday to remember when
we all come together.
To help each other out, and what a wonderful community this is. And also in the story, there's a little bit of my teenage hijinks in there. You can also read about that.
And Tom Brezhny's also got an editorial in yesterday's Sentinel about how we all come together.
Yep.
You are listening to KZSC Santa Cruz County Supervisor Ryan Coonerty. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You've been listening to a podcast from an interview on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club on KZSC 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California. This interview was co-produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange, and Sleepy John Sandage. Sean Specht helped get this interview into podcast format. KZSC is a student-run college and community non-commercial educational radio station broadcasting from the UC Santa Cruz campus. You can stream KZSC online at kzsc.org. Thanks for listening.